Once upon a time, there was a king who had a son who loved hunting. The king allowed him to enjoy his pastime, but instructed his minister to always accompany him and never let him out of sight. One day while hunting, the prince chased after a stag, thinking the minister was behind him. But after riding hard, he found himself alone. When the stag disappeared, the prince tried to return to the minister but got lost. While searching for the way back, he saw a beautiful woman by the roadside, weeping bitterly. He stopped and asked her who she was and why she was crying. "I am the daughter of an Indian king," she said. "While riding in the countryside, I fell asleep and fell off my horse, which ran away. I don't know where it has gone." Feeling sorry for her, the prince offered to help and let her ride behind him. As they rode by an old, ruined building, the woman dismounted and went inside. The prince followed her, but as soon as he entered, he overheard her saying to someone inside, "Rejoice, my children. I've brought you a fine young man to eat." Voices replied, "Where is he, mother? We are very hungry." The prince realized at once that the woman was not a princess, but an ogress who lured travelers to their doom. Terrified, he quickly got back on his horse. The woman appeared at that moment and, seeing that her prey was escaping, said, "Don't be afraid. What are you looking for?" "I'm lost and trying to find the way back," the prince answered nervously. "Just keep going straight," the ogress said. The prince, though still wary, rode off as fast as he could. He eventually found his way back to the palace and told his father about the danger he had faced because of the minister's carelessness. The king, enraged, had the minister executed immediately. "Sire," continued the minister, "now let me tell you about the doctor named Dobin. If you're not careful, you might regret trusting him. Just like the Greek king regretted trusting his physician. What if the cure he gave you will cause harm later?" The Greek king, weak-minded and easily influenced, began to doubt the physician. "You're right," the king said. "He could be plotting against me. The safest thing would be to get rid of him." The minister agreed, saying, "Yes, the only way to secure your life is to call him immediately and have him executed." The king, convinced, ordered one of his servants to fetch the doctor. When Douban arrived, the king said, "I'm having you executed to protect myself from your betrayal." Shocked, the doctor protested. "What have I done to deserve death, Your Majesty? I've been told you're a spy and plan to kill me." "But I will act first," said the king, and he ordered the executioner to strike. The doctor, kneeling in disbelief, pleaded, "Spare me, and I can save your life." At this point, the fisherman paused his story and said to the genie, "What happened to the Greek king and the doctor is happening between us. The Greek king had no mercy, and neither do you." The fisherman continued, "The doctor begged for mercy, but it was useless. He was bound and prepared for execution." "Before I die," the doctor said, "let me settle my affairs and leave my books to those who will use them well. I also want to give Your Majesty a precious book. It holds many wonders, the greatest of which is that after you cut off my head, if you open it to the 6th page and read the 3rd line, my head will answer any questions you ask." Curious, the king postponed the execution and allowed the doctor to settle his affairs. The next day, the doctor returned with a book and a basin. He told the king, "After my head is cut off, place it in the basin on top of this book. The blood will stop and my head will speak. But, Your Majesty, I beg you once more for mercy." The king, eager to see the marvel, ignored the doctor's plea and took the book. The executioner swiftly beheaded the doctor, and the head was placed in the basin. To everyone's amazement, the head opened its eyes and spoke, "Your Majesty, open the book." The king did as instructed, but when he tried to turn the pages, they stuck together. He moistened his finger with his mouth to turn them, but when he reached the 6th page, there was no writing. "There's nothing written here," the king exclaimed. "Keep turning," said the head. The king continued flipping the pages, still wetting his finger with his mouth. But the pages had been poisoned, and soon the king's vision blurred, and he collapsed. As he lay dying, the head of the doctor said, "Tyrant, see how cruelty is punished." With these words, both the king and the head died. "And that," said the fisherman, "is how the Greek king paid for his cruelty. The same fate awaits you if you don't spare me." The fisherman prepared to throw the genie back into the sea. "Please, don't do it," the genie begged. "Don't treat me as Emma treated Athaca." "And what did Emma do to Athaca?" asked the fisherman. "Let me out of here first, and I'll tell you," said the genie. "I promise to make you rich." Tempted by the thought of wealth, the fisherman agreed. "If you promise not to harm me, I will release you." The genie gave his word, and the fisherman opened the jar. The genie emerged in a puff of smoke, then kicked the jar into the sea. The fisherman was frightened, but the genie laughed and said, "Don't be afraid. I only did that to scare you. Now follow me, and I will make you rich." The genie led the fisherman through the town, up a mountain, and into a wide plain where a large lake lay between 4 hills. Once they arrived at the lake, the genie said to the fisherman, "Cast your net and catch some fish." The fisherman followed the instructions, hoping for a good catch, as he saw many fish swimming in the lake. To his surprise, the fish he caught were of 4 different colors: white, red, blue, and yellow. He had never seen such fish before and was pleased, thinking he would make a good profit by selling them. "Take these fish to the king," the genie said. "He will reward you with more money than you've ever had in your life. You can return to this lake every day, but only cast your net once. If you cast it more than once, something bad will happen to you. Follow my advice, and you will benefit." With that, the genie stomped on the ground, which opened up, and as soon as he disappeared, it closed again. The fisherman decided to follow the genie's words exactly. He did not cast his net again and went straight to the town to sell the fish to the palace. When the king saw the fish, he was amazed. After admiring them for a while, he told his first minister, "Take these fish to the skilled cook sent by the emperor. They must taste as good as they look." The minister took the fish to the cook and said, "Here are 4 fish for the king. Prepare them immediately." He returned to the king, who then rewarded the fisherman with 400 gold coins. The fisherman, never having had so much money, was overjoyed. He immediately took care of his family's needs and made wise use of the money. Now, back in the kitchen, things took an unexpected turn. After the cook cleaned the fish and placed them in a pan to fry, she turned them to cook the other side. Suddenly, the kitchen walls opened, and a beautiful young woman appeared. She was dressed in a satin gown and adorned with pearls, rubies, and gold jewelry. She carried a myrtle wand. She approached the pan, leaving the cook in shock. She tapped one of the fish with her wand and said, "Fish! Fish! Are you doing your duty?" The fish remained silent. She repeated her question, and the fish raised their heads and answered, "Yes, yes. If you count, we count. If you settle your debts, we settle ours. If you fly, we conquer, and we are content." After the fish spoke, the young woman overturned the pan and vanished back into the wall, which closed behind her. The cook was terrified when she saw that the fish had turned black and were burned. She cried, "What will I tell the king? He will be furious and won't believe me." The minister soon returned and asked if the fish were ready. The cook explained what had happened, and the minister was equally shocked. He immediately called for the fishermen and said, "Bring me 4 more fish like the ones you brought earlier. Something has happened to them, and they cannot be served to the king." The fisherman did not mention the genie's warning, but excused himself, saying he could not bring more fish that day because of the distance. He promised to return the next day with more fish. That night, the fisherman went to the lake and cast his net. Again, he caught 4 fish of different colors, just like before. He delivered them to the minister the next day. The minister took the fish to the cook and watched as she began to fry them. When she was about to turn the fish over, the wall opened again, and the same young woman appeared. She asked the fish the same question, received the same answer, and once again overturned the pan before disappearing. The minister was stunned. "I must tell the king about this," he said, and he did. The king was amazed and wanted to see it for himself. He ordered the fisherman to bring 4 more fish. The fisherman asked for 3 days, which the king granted. After 3 days, the fisherman cast his net in the lake and caught 4 more fish of different colors. The king was delighted and gave the fisherman another 400 gold coins. He then took the fish to his private quarters, where he intended to cook them himself with the minister. When they began to fry the fish, the wall of the room opened, but instead of the young woman, a tall black man appeared. He carried a large green stick and struck the fish, saying in a loud voice, "Fish! Fish! Are you doing your duty?" The fish raised their heads and replied, "Yes, yes. If you count, we count. If you settle your debts, we settle ours. If you fly, we conquer, and we are content." The tall man overturned the pan, burning the fish to cinders, and then disappeared into the wall, which closed behind him. "After seeing this," said the king, "I cannot rest. These fish must signify something mysterious, and I must uncover it." The king called for the fisherman. "Where did you find these fish?" he asked. "Sire," replied the fisherman, "I found them in a lake located between 4 hills beyond the mountains." The king asked the minister if he knew of the lake, but the minister said he had never heard of it, despite having hunted in the area many times. The king ordered his court to mount their horses, and they followed the fisherman to the lake. After climbing the mountain, they saw the clear water of the lake, with the colorful fish swimming within. The king decided to set up camp by the lake and told the minister, "I will uncover this mystery myself. Stay here and tell anyone who asks that I am unwell and cannot meet them." That night, the king left the camp alone. He crossed the hills and came upon a grand palace made of black marble, shining like a mirror. He entered through the half-open gate and walked through the palace, but no one was there. The rooms were luxurious, with silk carpets, tapestries, and gold decorations. Finally, he heard a voice crying, "I wish I could die, for I am too miserable to live." Following the sound, the king found a young man sitting on a throne, dressed richly but looking very sorrowful. The king approached and greeted him. The young man bowed but did not stand. "Sire," said the young man, "I cannot stand to greet you as I should." The king asked him what had happened and why the palace was so empty. Instead of replying, the young man lifted his robe, revealing that from the waist down, he was turned to black marble. The king was shocked and begged the young man to tell his story. "Gladly," said the young man. "I will tell you the tale of my misfortune.